Because his 4 children didn't want to come home for a family reunion, an old man had a sudden idea. He decided to travel across the country to see each of his children and find out if they were truly happy. Every time he found one, he asked the same simple question.
You happy?
What do you mean?
You happy?
Yeah, of course I am.
Hearing that his daughter was doing well, a quiet joy lit up the wrinkles at the corner of his eyes. So when he visited his eldest son, he hoped for the same answer. And though his son said he was happy, the old man could see something in his eyes. That slight hesitation gave it away. That's when Frank realized something. They were lying. None of them were truly happy. He couldn't understand. Why would his own children lie to him? To find out the truth, Frank asked all 4 of them to come home for Thanksgiving. But the day before the holiday, his eldest daughter called. She said she was swamped with work and wouldn't be able to make it. Frank felt disappointed, but still held on to a little hope. After all, he had 3 other kids. Then he listened to the rest of his voicemails. One by one, they all said they couldn't come, too busy with work. As a father, Frank felt a mix of emotions. But what could he say? Blame them? Ever since his wife passed away 8 months ago, none of them had returned home. When she was alive, she was the bridge between Frank and the kids. They told her everything. But now, things were different. They barely called him. That quiet distance had pierced straight into his heart, and all he really wanted was to know if they were happy. After sitting alone for a while, he made a bold decision. He would travel across the country to visit his 4 beloved children, one by one, and to make it a surprise. He wouldn't tell any of them he was coming. He packed his bags, brought all his medication, and began the journey. But he didn't know how far he could go. Before retiring, Frank had worked with protective coatings on power cables. Years of exposure had damaged his lungs. His health was fragile, and he needed medication on time. Flying was too risky, so he took the train. To everyone he met on the way, Frank proudly introduced his kids. His eldest son was a conductor, his youngest son, a painter, his youngest daughter, a professional dancer, his eldest daughter, a corporate executive. He spoke of them with pure pride. After a long day of travel, he arrived at his son David's apartment. He rang the doorbell again and again. No one answered. He waited on the front steps, hoping David was just working late. But hours passed. Still no sign. Disappointed, Frank turned to leave. But as he walked past a nearby art gallery, something caught his eye. A painting familiar brushwork. He looked down at the label. It was David's name. In that moment, Frank remembered how David used to say he wanted to be a house painter. But Frank had told him, become a real artist. Be someone important. Now, it seemed David had done just that. But Frank wondered, was it David's dream or his? The next morning, a neighbor helped Frank get into the apartment building. He knocked on David's door for a long time. No response. Trying to stay positive, he told himself David must be out of town. Then he bent down and carefully slid a letter under the door. I wanted to surprise you, but I guess you weren't home. I'll call you soon. Love, Dad. The rough start left Frank feeling low, but he had to stay hopeful because next, he was going to see his eldest daughter. On the way, he passed all kinds of travelers, but it was like he lived in his own quiet world now. He no longer talked to anyone about his kids. After a few days of travel, he found his daughter Amy in the backyard of a large, beautiful house. She was on the phone. For a second, Frank saw the little girl who used to run to him with open arms. It warmed his heart. Now she was a top executive, married to a wealthy man, living a life most people dream of. But when she saw Frank, her smile seemed a bit forced. And when he asked about her husband, she quickly changed the subject. Frank didn't think too much of it. He was too happy to see her and his grandson again. Later that night, the son-in-law came home. He and Amy acted loving in front of Frank, but at dinner, Frank noticed how cold and distant his grandson was toward his own father. At first, Frank brushed it off. Maybe the boy was just being moody. When Frank asked to stay a few extra days, Amy quickly made excuses. She said things were busy and hectic. That made Frank suspicious. And when he tried to take a family photo, both Amy and her son seemed uneasy around the husband. Clearly, there were problems in her marriage. Frank left a letter behind, then quietly moved on. He hoped Amy was happy, but now he wasn't so sure. Next, he went to see his other son, Robert. After several transfers, he finally found the orchestra where his son worked. He pointed at a poster with a conductor on it and proudly asked a stranger to take his picture. He was beaming with pride, but when he entered the rehearsal hall, he saw that Robert wasn't the conductor. He was just a drummer. The gap between dreams and reality caught both of them off guard, but Frank didn't believe his son had lied. When Robert ran up to greet him, he still looked like that sweet boy from years ago. At first, Robert was thrilled to see his dad, but when Frank asked why he told everyone he was a conductor, his eyes started to dodge. Robert explained, being a drummer is less stressful. He makes money, gets to travel, and genuinely loves what he does. As for being a conductor, that was just his mom bragging. She was proud, so he never corrected her. Frank felt it was a waste of talent. He encouraged Robert to go back to school, work toward becoming a real conductor someday. He'd support him financially, if needed, but Robert turned him down. He was content with the life he had. Even after that, Frank still didn't want to give up. He asked to stay for a few days, but Robert said he was flying to Europe that night for a performance. Rejected again. Frank felt a deep sadness rise in his chest, but he kept it to himself. He quietly left a letter on top of Robert's favorite drum and asked the same question again.
And you happy? Happy? Yeah. I get paid to bang a big loud drum all day. Of course I'm happy.
but Frank already knew. Robert was lying too. Just like Amy, a father is supposed to be the one person his children can lean on, but somehow, he had become part of the lie they all told. Still, Frank pushed on. He wanted to see his youngest daughter next. On the way, he tried calling David the son he hadn't reached yet. The phone rang and rang. No answer. At the station, he missed the last bus after mixing up the schedule. He planned to catch a train instead, but in the tunnel, he ran into a homeless man. The man looked about David's age. Out of sympathy, Frank gave him some cash, but the man followed him and tried to steal his wallet. In the scuffle, Frank's medicine fell to the ground and got crushed. He hadn't expected a simple act of kindness to end like this, without a prescription. He couldn't get a refill. Left with no choice, he rushed back home, this time by plane. But shortly after takeoff, Frank passed out. When he woke up, he was in the hospital. The good news? All his kids had come to see him. The bad news? David still hadn't shown up. Frank asked where he was, and that's when the others revealed a shocking secret. A secret that would change Frank's life forever. Want to know what happened next? Follow me. The rest of the story is coming soon.